Ahoy mateys, welcome back to the Origami Beach Party brought to you by the Amherst Public Library. My name is James, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to fold a pretty nifty angelfish model that was designed by the renowned John Montroll, who is a legend in modern origami history as far as I'm concerned. All right, here we go with the John Montroll angelfish. I'm going to use a square of paper, and to begin we need to create a bird base. Funny enough, even though we're folding a fish, we have to fold a bird base. So here's how we do that. Let's begin by taking one corner of the square and folding it up to the opposite corner. One thing I will note is if you are using origami paper that is white on one side, I want you to begin with the colored side facing up. Okay, so we begin colored side facing up, although I'm using a sheet that's the same color on both sides, but let's take that bottom corner up to the top, fold in half. Next, let's open up the paper, rotate, and fold it in half with the other two corners. Open up the paper and flip it over. So now, if you are using traditional origami paper, you should be on the white colored side. Now let's bring the bottom edge up to the top edge. And rotate the paper like a book. Open the book, take the bottom edge, and bring it up to the top edge. We can now collapse the paper down into a preliminary base, also known as a square base. And this is much like when we collapse the base for the crab, which, by the way, I didn't mention, the base that we used for the crab was called a water bomb base. And this is the preliminary base. And you see how you can just push those two sides together? It all just kind of collapses. It's almost like a big mouth, like a shark, hungry shark, coming to eat our angelfish. No, just kidding. But let's go ahead and collapse the paper. And just like the crab, we're going to have two flaps on one side and two flaps on the other. Two on the right and two on the left. And I want you to orient your square base so that the closed corner is on the top and the open side is on the bottom. And we're going to put the paper down. And I'll just also point out, this is where the raw edges of the paper are, down here. So you want to take one of the flaps from that raw edge, and we're going to bring that up to the center line. So that's one flap. On the right, let's also do that with the left. Bring the raw edge up to the center. We have to do the same thing on the back side of the paper. So let's flip the model over, front or left to right, front to back, so that we've still got those two raw edges at the bottom, and we're going to roll that up to the center crease. And repeat on the last flap. Now, all of those creases were pre-creases. So let's slightly unfold the model. We're going to unfold the two flaps from each side, front and back, so we're back to our square base. And there are a few different ways to do this last step. By the way, the next step is called a petal fold if we do it a certain way. And the petal fold And this is, if you've ever folded a traditional paper crane, this is the exact same thing that you might have done. To make a petal fold, we can bring the top layer of paper up. And we can start to kind of push it upwards to create a hinge that connects the ends of these two creases. So, as I start to lift that flap up, I can just try to make sure that the crease is finding the ends of those two existing creases. And as I start to lift up the paper, we can eventually get this point to come all the way back to sit flat down on the table. And what's going to happen is we're going to reverse these two creases in here. And this almost starts to look a little bit like a boat, like a canoe. But then we can eventually collapse the model all the way down. Now I can show you a slightly different way of completing that step with the backside. So let's flip it over. We have to do the same thing, or at least end up with the same result. But we could do this one a little differently. Here's what we could do. If you lift up that front flap just a little bit, you will see that that flap is actually divided into two triangles because we were folding through two layers of paper. You can take that long sort of, it almost looks like a wide mountain shape. And in fact, we're going to reverse the valley crease here that goes up to this point into a mountain. And by doing so and kind of pushing the mountain flap inside, we can collapse the model back down and it will disappear inside the model. Now let's just go ahead and do that with the other side. Lift up the flap just a little bit, spread the paper out, and we're going to kind of reverse that valley crease, tucking it underneath, kind of pushing that in, and then let that sit down flat. And finally, we can lift this flap up along a natural hinge to position it like the flap on the back. And there you have it, the bird base. And in case you didn't know this, the bird base is what is used to make the traditional paper crane. Okay, so we're going to bring the wing flaps of the bird base down. Of course, we're not making a bird base, or we're not making a bird. And for the next step, we're going to take the bottom corner of that wing flap and we're going to bring it up to the tip top of the shape here. Now we are going to bring the tip at the top of this flap over to meet this side corner. So it's going to look like this. That tip at the top goes over to the tip at the side. And then go ahead and unfold the paper and let's fold that same tip over to this corner. Tip at the top goes over to the corner at the side, and the crease will connect with this point down here. Then we unfold that flap and we're going to create what is called a rabbit ear. So to do that, make sure that that flap is still kind of sticking up, but then you can get those two creases that you just made to happen at the same time, and we get what's called a rabbit ear. It really does look like the ear of a rabbit. We can pinch that closed, and then we want to set it down, and we'll just send it over here to the right as we set it down flat, and it'll reconnect with this corner over here. Very good. Now let's do the same thing on the back side. Flip the model over. Bottom corner brought up to the top corner. And then we can take that corner at the top, that flap, and bring it to the side corner. And there's actually a way to do this all in one step, but let's just go ahead and take that tip over to the right corner. Oops. There we go. And then we unfold and we make our rabbit ear. So we kind of have to push this back in a little bit, but we're going to kind of refold those two slanted creases. And it really does look like a rabbit ear. It's kind of funny, this particular flap is so much like a rabbit ear. All right, so we're going to pinch that down the middle, and then we want it to sit down into the right, because we set the other one down into the right, and you'll see why. We want them to both go in that direction. Okay, so these two flaps that we just made, we're going to send them back down. We're just going to unfold that hinge crease so that that whole flap comes straight down. Do that on both sides. Okay, and we're almost done. Now I'm going to rotate my paper so that it looks like this. And for the next step, we're going to make a crease that connects the center tip with this corner right here, and we're going to bring just this one edge over. And actually what's happening is we're bringing this edge down to the middle line. Or I should say over to the middle line. So again, taking this edge, just one flap, one layer, make sure you don't take the one behind it, bring it to the center. And then we flip the model over to the back and repeat edge to the middle and then edge to the middle. We're at the final step, and this is a little tricky, but I think we can do it. What we need to do is bring out this big flap that's kind of underneath in the middle of the layers here. So to do that, we're going to kind of make sure we're holding the rest of the model together, but if you get underneath, we're going to reverse a crease. What was once a valley crease inside here is going to eventually become a mountain. So if you just kind of pull that out a little bit and kind of let the layers inside kind of settle where they want to, and then fold all the way out to the tip. So that's one half. Now let's take the other big corner in the middle. We're just going to get underneath it, reverse the crease. You have to give it a little tug there, and just kind of let the layers on the inside fall where they want to. Once you do, you're all finished. And there it is, the John Montroll angelfish. Thanks for folding with me, and join me for the final video coming right up, where we're going to fold an original stingray model that I designed. We'll see you then.